to give you an overview and an introduction to Revit, I'm just going to run through opening one of the sample projects and to show you the user interface and some of the tools that are of benefit when you first start using Revit. So when you're first presented with the Revit home screen, when you click on the icon on your desktop or from your Start tab, it will come up with this home screen, and you can toggle between the home screen or between this classic view screen, and that just allows you to open a file. So at the moment we've nothing open here. Within here we can open, for example, projects that are saved maybe in BIM 360 in Autodesk's cloud solution, or we can open previous projects which appear here. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to open a sample file that comes pre-installed with Revit, just to show you the user interface and the 3D environment that Revit operates in. So you'll see when we open up a project, it will open on a particular view, similar in AutoCAD. You know, when you open AutoCAD or a CAD drawing, it opens in a particular type of view as well. And in essence, Revit operates in the same type of manner. So you can see here on the top screen, we've got our ribbon toolbar. Appears again similar to other drafting or drawing tools. There's just a slightly different tool function enabled here, and we operate in a 3D environment as well as a 2D environment, and that's one of the key things within the Revit environment, is that it's 2D and 3D are completely interlinked. So I can click on these objects, this curtain wall, it selects that entire curtain wall and it tells me the properties of that particular curtain wall here on the left. I can also select, for example, this tree, and I can see the different types of information attached to that tree. So I can see this is going to be a Japanese cherry tree and it's 4.5 meters tall. I can edit some of those properties, but we can output all of these properties into something like a schedule or an agenda as well. And that can be for wall types or floor types or furniture or trees or parking spaces. But the idea is that this is all of your information in BIM, or the I in BIM is capturing all of this type of information, and we can add specific comments here if we want, or custom comments if we want, and add those to our Revit object, and that the information is attached to that particular Revit object. I'll go into that in a bit more detail as well. And the same if I select the wall, for example, we've got all of this different type of information, such as the type of wall that it is. It's an exterior insulation on masonry, and we can create custom walls as well. We can see the length of that wall, the area of that wall, which is obviously relevant for calculating even the amount of paint or the amount of plaster or the amount of render, or even, you know, calculating structural elements that may be required, or from a quantity surveyor point of view as well, being able to calculate all that information. So the key thing here is that every object within a Revit file can have information attached to it, and that goes for most objects anyway within a Revit file as well. So within here, this is a sample project, so there's already information created in. We've already got a building designed in here as well. I'm just going to show you how this interlinks with the 3D environment to the 2D environment as well. So on the left here, we've got our properties tab. Whenever you select something, the properties of that selection will also appear under the properties tab. So we just have the view activated here, so it's the properties of the 3D view. If I select the wall, as you've previously seen, the properties will then show up there. Below this, we've got a project browser, and the project browser basically just shows you all of your views and all of the different documentation elements that you have attached to your project. So at the top here, we've got something called floor plans. Then we've got our ceiling plans, which are interlinked to our floor plans. We've got 3D views, such as this one here. And when I select it, I can scroll down here on the left-hand side, and it will give me the properties of that particular 3D view. And I can see it's highlighted here in bold. It's from parking area. So this 3D view has been named as from parking area. If I select building courtyard, it's then going to bring me into that 3D view for the building courtyard as well. And the same for elevations. I can jump between the different elevations here as well, and even through to sections as well that have already been produced. And I can zoom in and select all of the elements within those particular sections as well. I've also got detail views, which is where you can pull out your 1:5, your 1:10 details, adding in your 2D information using annotation information, annotation detail information as well. Annotation being that it only exists in this particular view, it doesn't exist in the 3D area of the Revit environment whatsoever. So down here we've also got something called schedules, which I'll go into a bit more detail in a moment. And here we have a door schedule, furniture, hardware schedule, basically quantifying everything in your project. Landscape schedule, this is where we'll capture all the trees that we've seen. You can see that Japanese cherry that we selected. We've got 2 of them in the project. If I deleted one from a 3D view, this will then update to there's only 1 in the project, or if I add 1 or 10, obviously this is going to update to either 3 or to 12, whatever I add inside the project. And I can also create a schedule for almost anything in the project, even room and floor finishes, what the name of that room is, what the area of that is. So if we're going to have a particular floor finish, if it's a laid floor, a tiled floor, or a timber floor, we can know for pricing purposes what the square meter area of that needs to be. And we can even add something called a parameter to integrate the cost of that particular floor or the square meter rate of that, and we can have that calculated automatically based on the room size within here as well. And most importantly, we have our sheets down here. So our sheets, this is always going to be your deliverable on a project, in most cases anyway, is your drawing output. This is what you need to deliver either for your planning permission or applications, or for your construction drawings, or if you've to issue a certain type of drawing to a structural engineer, consultant, or to a client. It's always going to be from your sheets out of your views that you've created within Revit as well. And these are what essentially will get PDF'd or exported as sheets as well. So we can see here we've got sheet views, similar to how your sheet views or your layout views and your viewports work, maybe in a traditional AutoCAD context as well. And we can create all of the different views that we want in here, and we can place any of these views, these 2D views, onto sheets from within here. And I will show you that workflow in a bit more detail once we get into it as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you how the interlinking of the 2D to 3D works. So I'm just going to select an option up here. It's called closed inactive views. You don't need to know about it yet, but it just helps you clear any tab that you have open. It doesn't close the project by any means. So I'm going to open a floor plan, and I'm going to open a 3D view as well. I'm just going to click on 3D view. I'm going to type in WT. This is just going to align them beside each other. So we've got one project open. So that project it's an RVT file, and this is the project name up here. I can see at the top of the screen, and I've got a floor plan here on the right, and I've got a 3D view here on the left hand side. So if I select something within my 2D view, for example, I'm going to make sure we select something that can be seen. I'm going to select this wall at the end, and you can see that is also highlighted in here. So if I then delete that wall, I'm just going to hit delete, and it deletes it from the 2D building view and also from the 3D building view as well, which is very powerful because you've got your live 3D view that's updating from your 2D drawings, or vice versa as well. So it's a completely interlinked bi-directional function between the 2D and the 3D, which is obviously one of the most key things in using Revit. But then you also have your information attached to that particular 2D or 3D elements within your project as well. So that's essentially just looking at the essence of how Revit functions. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run through the user interface here at the top. So we've got something called an architecture tab, and this is where obviously all of your architectural tools live. And a lot of the tools you'll use initially from an architectural point of view is your wall tool. Instead of drawing lines, you're going to be placing walls, and you're going to have different types of walls as well. And we'll show in maybe an example project how we're going to create different wall types as well. You've got doors, placing doors, does exactly what it says in the tin. Windows, this is where you find all of your objects, or what are also known as your families. And it's not that you just draw lines within a Revit project. You're always placing objects or placing families that has information and intelligence attached to each of them as well. You can also model in place. So if you just want to model some sort of blank mass, or some sort of plain type of mass, like a box representing site context, or even modeling something that may not be in your library. And I'll show you how to access the proprietary library as well. You can place columns, place roofs, ceilings, floors, and curtain wall systems as well. Even railings, ramps, stairs, and then you can place 2D lines in a 3D space using the model lines. Something very powerful are the room tags as well. And room tags basically are placed in a room, and they contain different room information. So these can be room finishes. So I've clicked on the room tag that's been placed here. I can see the area, the perimeter of that room, so I know how much skirting board or how much conduit needs to go in that room. I know exactly where that room is located, the name of it, the number of it, and when it's going to be created, something called phases, which we don't need to worry about just yet. So that's just looking briefly at the architecture tab, and the room tags and area tags work very similar to room tags as well. So it's good to be aware of those. And you can also create different openings on walls, on roofs, on floors as well. And it gives you a little tool tip. When you hover over something in Revit, in most cases over a tool, if you're not sure what it does, just hover over for 2 or 3 seconds, and sometimes an animation or a still image will come up in how that particular tool works. And we can see here that a video is loading telling you how to create a particular room tag as well. So it's quite helpful and intuitive there. You can also create grid lines as well. We can see here we've got grid lines placed here, and these only exist in a 2D space, so it's intelligent to know that they only exist in a 2D space. So that's kind of looking at your architecture tab in brief. We've got something called our structural tab, which obviously has all of your structural tools. So from a structural engineering point of view, this is where you will find all of that information located. So columns, beams, walls, foundations, slabs, and any sort of reinforcement tools within here as well. And then you've got quite a lot of steel tools and precast as well. Then within your systems information, this is where you'll find your mechanical and your HVAC information, your P&ID content, if that's what you're using, even plumbing fixtures and electrical equipment as well, from light switches to sockets to actual light fittings and light fixtures themselves as well. That's where you'll find all of those tools. And then your insert tool, you can link in other Revit files from here. So simply linking in a Revit file, similar to how an XREF might work in a AutoCAD context. You can link in IFC. Also link in AutoCAD works very similar to XREF in that it is actually a live floor plan. So if you link in something from AutoCAD or from CAD, if you hit save within your AutoCAD and just refresh that floor plan within the Revit environment, the actual floor plan would update. So it's not just a static 2D plan, it is actually live. If, for instance, somebody in your office or somebody in another company is working in AutoCAD, you can still work those two processes alongside each other by linking in CAD files. And it's intelligent enough to know that it's broken down into different layers, so you can still control the layer viewing properties by turning certain layers on and off in the AutoCAD environment. And this can be quite helpful when you're bringing in a site plan or even an existing building. You can snap to all of the existing lines and model over them within a Revit context from a 2D CAD floor plan as well. So quite helpful, especially when you're making that transition from AutoCAD to Revit, for example. You can bring in topography, DWFs, decals, different point clouds such as RCP or RCS, coordination models from something like Navisworks, NWD or NWC files, link in PDFs and model over your PDFs, any sort of images, and you can manage all of your different links from in here as well by turning them on or off or just checking where they're located, what the path of them is, and where they're based either on your server or on your machine. Again, you can, so linking CAD gives you that live link, but importing CAD actually binds it into the drawing itself. I always prefer to work with linking CAD myself. Then you can also do import MEP content from fabrication jobs, import PDF as well as linking in a PDF. So if a PDF updates, then the PDF will update using link. If you import it, it's going to be static in there and it won't update if you change it. And then the same for importing imagery as well. And you can insert different types of files from the library as well. In your annotation tab, you've got your basic dimension tools as the same as you would have in an AutoCAD project. All your basic dimension tools, and these usually only exist in a 2D view, and I'll show you an example of that. You can also place different elevation markers as well, and these are live elevation markers in that it will automatically input the elevation of a certain piece of, if it's a soffit or a ridge of a roof, it will automatically put in the dimension rather than you having to type it in manually. different coordinates as well if you have coordinates built in. And then you've in your detail lines, you can also create 2D lines in a 2D view as well. And this just allows you to overcome having to model every single element within a 3D environment. For example, you're not going to model in every single screw and every single washer for certain types of details, whether it's structural or architectural or MEP as well. And you can also detail in different types of, for example, insulation or mortar joints within those 2D information as well. You can place text the same way you can place notes. And you can also place something called multi-category tags, which allows you to tag a piece of information or tag an object, and it will automatically pull the information that's associated with that object. So if it's a table, and if that table has a finish attached to it within its property dialog, the multi-category tag can automatically pull in that tag. Therefore, wherever you place that tag on an object, it will always pull in the information that is attached to that object. So they're intelligent tags. And the same for room tags and space tags as well. And something called keynotes, which is very handy for using specification information, perhaps from a CSV file as well. And you can also create different color fill legends on paper or pages, your sheets that you output as well. And also you can still do 2D annotation symbols such as north points or elevation markers if that's what you want to show. We've also got some analytic tools instead of for the likes of structural elements, analytical tools. We can also analyze certain spaces as well for heating and cooling loads. Check all of your MEP equipment. Again, create colorful legends from in here, but you can also perform some energy optimization from in here as well. Paths of travel for fire escape, for example, and also a link in here for structural analysis and robot structural analysis as well. That's under your Analyze tab. Under your Massing and Site tab, you can create a conceptual mass, just a blank kind of mass. Such here, you can do quite interesting shapes if that's what you want. Bring in topo surfaces, place site components such as trees, parking spaces, create building pads, so what your building is actually going to be placed on, and you can split certain surfaces as well. So it's good to be aware of those tools. And then property lines, you can use these property lines to create your, for example, your legal boundary within a project, and we can see that animation coming up there as well. And you can create different grading regions and then place label contours onto those 3D environment labels there. You can see that all of your elevations will show up on your topography. Then we've got something called the Collaborate tab. This is where you can collaborate using something called Revit Server internally, or you can also collaborate using something called BIM 360 document management, as you can see here. This requires a BIM 360 subscription, but it allows you to save projects into the cloud and integrate and collaborate with other consultants or other people in your company using BIM 360 document management as well. And basically the Collaborate tab allows you to make changes to your Revit model, then synchronize that back to a existing model, and for somebody in a different part of the world or of your country or even within your own office to pull those changes down and sync them into their model as well. And it's quite an efficient way to be able to collaborate as well using the synchronization function as well. And you can monitor all of the work sharing that occurs between different individuals and different people that own certain elements of the model. For example, the internal furniture might be on one particular work sharing layer, and you might have all of the external walls on another work sharing layer as well. And you can control what gets published to those BIM 360 environments as well. And then you can also copy monitor different elements such as grid lines. If something moves in a new updated model, it will demonstrate to you that has moved within there as well. And you can perform different coordination functions within this tool as well. Within your view tab, you can control all of your different viewing elements. So being able to control your create your 3D views and create even different line templates and different line weights from within your view tab as well, and control something called your visibility graphics, so your line thicknesses and how certain elements appear. You can even render in the cloud as well, create a render from one of these 3D views here. And that's all done from within here, creating your sections, elevations. Then from your Manage tab, you can manage all of your materials and different object styles and your line weights from in here as well. And also Revit 2021 now comes with generative design pre-installed with it, and we've got Dynamo as well. So good to be aware of those. And you can globally position your project as well, and specify coordinates at particular points from within here, so you can make it a real world location also. This is where your add-ins tabs is. So if you've third-party plugins, you'll also see some of them appear in here. And this just helps you integrate as well, even with things like Civil 3D Format, and structural steel and advanced steel workflows as well within the Autodesk solutions. And we've all got something called quantification, where you can use area books to capture quantification of information within your Revit model. And we've also got classification tools for the likes of Kobe and IFC exporting as well, and that's all controlled from within here as well. So I'm just going to open up a blank project, and just to show you some of those tools in use, and to give you a bit more insight into maybe how those tools are used on a project. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close this sample project. So click no on that. So what I want to do, I want to open up a new model here in Revit. So I presented with something called a template file, and I want to use the metric architectural template. So this is just going to create a blank template with some pre-installed properties in it. So I can see in my left hand side, it automatically gives me two different levels, level 1, level 2, and a site level. So 3 different levels, and associated to each of those levels, you can see we've got a ceiling level, and then we've got each of our 4 elevations, east, north, south, and west as well. So you can edit the name of all of these if you want to, ground floor, first floor, and create 10 or 12 or 20 levels as well. So just if I go into an elevation view, and I'm going to type WT again, and we've got our floor plan view here in our left, and within our floor plan view we've got our 4 elevation markers here, and this is just the direction that our elevations are facing here, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail. So within here you can see you've got a number of different levels. So for every level that you create in an elevation, it will create a floor plan as a result. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to, in my view tab, sorry, that's within my architecture tab. I'm just going to go to my level tool here, and all I'm going to do, I'm just going to go into an elevation, and I'm just going to draw a level across there. So I can see as soon as I created that, that created something else, another level, so level number 3 in this case. So if I click into that level, that will bring me into that particular level 3. Now I know we can see nothing here at the moment. So I've got level 1 and level 3 here, and I've got my east elevation open here. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to go into my default 3D view, which can be found from up here. So you can see the 3 levels actually appear there in my 3D view. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tile these 3 windows. So I've got my 3D view, I've got my elevation, and I'm actually going to go into my floor plan. I'm just going to start modeling some walls. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start clicking on the first wall tool here. And this particular template comes installed with a series of different wall types, but you can create your own. I'm going to create the render on brick on blockwork, and I'm just going to start placing walls here. You can see the measurements are coming up. I'm not going to worry too much about the measurements. So I'm just going to create a very simple shape. So we're just going to create a very simple shape. And I know by clicking on this wall that it's actually facing the wrong way. So I want this to be my internal space, and that shows me that it's facing externally. So all I have to do is select all of those with my tab key, hit spacebar, and that has flipped all of those around. So when I place a wall, you can see it's all come in 3D in its entirety. So I can see full height wall has been created there. So when I select the wall in a 3D view, you can see it's selected in all of the other elevation and the 2D view as well. And within the left-hand side here, we've got something called a base constraint. So that particular base constraint is set at level 1 because I modeled in level 1. So if I modeled in level 3, this would automatically go to level 3. And I can also set a top constraint. So just as a rule of thumb, we usually model from floor to floor level. So I'm just going to model the top constraint as level 1 to level 2 for that particular wall, but I actually want to apply that to all of the walls. So I've just used my tab key, selected all of those walls. I'm just going to go to up to level 2 for that particular one, and that's just going to bring down all of those particular wall wall constraints to level 2. I can see there in level 2 then sits at the top of that wall. So I'm just going to turn on my color views here. So if you look down the bottom left here, when I click into a view, I've got something called the detail level. So I can jump between coarse level or detail level. And this only matters if you have your detail level created in your view. And I'm just going to create on my shaded view. It just makes it a bit more presentable looking, or a bit easier to work with, I find, when you've got some colors shown there, particularly for architectural elements. I'm just going to turn on some, just to make it a bit easier on the eyes, turn on some shadows as well, and it just gives depth for when you're actually working with your particular elements within there as well. So I'm going to turn it on to fine. So we can see there that we've got our walls created, and this particular wall has certain elements. We can see it's got different elements to it, and I'm just going to go into this wall build up here, and I can see I can see the complete wall build up is created here. And if I actually go into a section view, this actually has something called a sweep. So this could be a particular wall detail or a piece of brick that has been integrated into the wall construction here as well. So I'm actually just going to change this just for simplicity. I'm just going to change this to a simpler wall construction just to show you. So if I select every wall, I'm just going to change it to a basic 200 mil wall. I'm going to show you how to create a custom wall. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this particular wall. I'm going to select all of these walls. I'm going to go into edit type, and I'm going to create my own custom wall. So I'm just going to duplicate that. I'm just going to create this. I'm just going to call this new wall 350 mil. Click OK. I'm just going to go into edit type. So all this has is just something called a function, and it's called structure. So that's fairly basic wall construction. So we want to create a cavity wall, for example. So what we want to do is create an external brick of 100 mil. We want to create a internal cavity of 100 mil with insulation in it, and we want to create then a inner leaf with 100 mil block work. So we can see here that all these layers on the left hand side are actually changing as I do that. So I'm going to create another one, hit insert, and I want to move that down to here, and I want to create a 50 mil internal insulation. So we can see here all of these layers have different functions. So this one again is going to be a finish layer in here, and you don't need to worry about these initially, but it's good to be aware of. And I can then go in and select the different materials on this. So you only have to do this once by creating this particular wall. I can go in and create different materials in here, or I can add materials as I wanted. So that's, I'm just going to go in and select a brick. So I'm just going to search for a brick. So I can see here this has actually brought in a brick from the particular Revit library. Just going to click OK on this. That has applied a brick to that. And then on this thermal layer, I can then add in more information. I can go into insulation as well. You don't have to complete all of this information when you're first creating it. And all of these materials have different information attached to them. So they can have physical and thermal information attached to them as well. So basic thermal, the thermal expansion coefficient. You can even have mechanical information, the strength of that as well, from a structural point of view for whatever reason. And then you can apply different types of information, including the permeability, the specific heat, the density, the thermal conductivity as well. So all of that information can be added in there if you want to go to that level of detail. So I'm just going to leave it at that for the moment. So we've got a new wall called 350 mil. If I zoom in here, it shows that it's only a single thickness. I'm just going to change between fine, and we can see there all of our particular layers are now showing up. So say I want to place some information in there. So I want to place some doors. So I'm just going to select the first door that comes up. If I want to load in more doors, I can just load family, go to my pre-installed library, UK, doors, external doors, and just load in a particular door if I want. Just click OK on that. So I can just start placing doors, and this will just place it at whatever level I'm in here. So I'm at level 1, for example. So we can assume this is some sort of commercial or retail unit that we're placing here. And I can do the same with windows as well. And I'm just going to use whatever windows are pre-installed. Here I can doing the same process as loading doors. I can also load in windows as well. I can even convert some of these walls to curtain walls if I wish as well. So we've got a nice 2D floor plan created there, and I'm going to place some room tags in this floor plan as well. So what I've done is I've placed a room tag by typing RM, or in fact I can use this tool here. So let's place that there, and now I want to place some dimensions on that particular wall as well. So just wall, so I want to capture the wall faces and the entire wall of that as well. So all I have to do is click on that, click on that. So all I'm doing is placing some dimensions here. So it's automatically placing the dimensions for those particular walls. So it's intelligent information. It knows that I'm placing walls. Now, say I want to place this onto a sheet. I go down to my sheets. I've no sheets created. I just right click, select new sheet, A1 metric, click OK. Then I go back up to this particular floor plan that I created. So I want to then place that onto the sheet I created. So I double click back down and simply just drag that floor plan onto my sheet. And there you have a basic floor plan created in a matter of minutes, dimensioned with a certain level of detail placed on the walls. We've got a room tag on it as well. We can even place the room area in this room tag if we wish. So I'm just going to select that room tag. We want to show the area of that room. It's 841 square meters, a good size room. And I just want to move this up here as well. I just want to move my title line as well. So what I can do with that particular sheet, I can then output that sheet to a PDF or to a plotter or a printer as well. So that's a very basic floor plan. And the same principle works for creating 3D views as well. So we've got a 3D view created here. So I'm going to go into my 2D plan, and what I want to do is create a 3D view. 3D view, simply place my camera, it shows me there, and I can see it's come in. It's a bit crude looking, not the greatest looking image. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to my graphics display. I'm just going to change some of the detail level. So I want to change it to shaded. And this is just bringing in all of that material information that is attached to that brick material that I've created already. I'm going to turn on shadows and ambient shadows just to make it a bit more realistic. And I'm going to turn up my ambient light and maybe bring down my shadows, click apply, and then in the background, I'm just going to, I want to place a gradient as the background here as well. So you can see you can start to create a 3D image in very quick time, and you can add more entourage information such as cars, trees, and certain landscaping detail to it as well. So it's a fairly basic design, but you get the idea that we're able to create information in a very quick manner using Revit. So I'm just going to hide that. Now I want to place that particular view on a sheet. I want to place it on the same sheet that I've actually placed my elevation on. So I actually want to crop my view to hide out these elevation tags. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my crop view, and I want to show my crop region. So all I'm going to do is pull in my viewport. So it's just hiding the elements. It's not deleting them or removing them whatsoever. It's just allowing you to hide your different types of elements. So I'm just going to hide the crop region, but it still exists. It's still hiding that information. The 3D view that I created is now called 3D view 1. I'm just going to place that onto the sheet down the bottom left there. And now I also want to create a room schedule. So I'm going to right click on this, create schedule. I want to create a schedule. So I'm going to select rooms. So room schedule, click OK. I want to get the area and the name of the room. So if I only have one room located at the moment, so it's only placed one room. If I go into my floor plan and start placing some walls, I'll show you that now. I'm going to start placing some internal walls here. I'm just going to choose a interior partition. I'm going to start placing some walls. So all I'm doing here is dividing up this floor space, and you can see my 3D view is again producing all of that information in 3D as well, and we've got a nice view of that as well. And then I'm going to place some room tags in this again. So place my room tags in there. If I go into my schedule that I created, my room schedule, I've now got a series of different rooms. I can rename these rooms if I want, and that will update. But all I'm going to do is just want to place this on my sheet. So this can be something you might want to put together quickly for a client to show, okay, these are our floor areas. If I then move this particular wall, for example, you'll see my floor area is updated there. The second one updated to 83 square meters when I move this particular wall. Watch if I move it again, and again it updates. So again, you've always got live information being updated immediately. If I then want to create some schedule information, such as wall information, so I'm going to create a wall schedule. Actually, we'll make it a door schedule, for example, and we'll just capture all of the doors that are in the project. Click doors. So I want to pull in the family and type, which is the name, and the fire rating, for example, and something called a mark, and this is going to give us the number of them. So I'm just going to click OK. You can see here it's pulled in all of these particular doors, and this is every door that's placed here. If I delete one of these doors, I'm going to delete it now, you can see that it's also deleted off that particular project schedule as well. So I'm just going to place this schedule on my doors, on my sheet of doors. So I'm going to pull that door schedule, place it on my sheet. Any of this fire rating information or family and type information, all I have to do is click on the door, and it's pulling in, this is the family and type information that's in here. I can rename that if I want from my project browser. But then the mark information is contained here in number 3, and this is something called parametric information. And my fire rating information is based in the type. So I'm going to put in a fire rating parameter within here as well. So fire rating, and I want all of these to be 60 minutes, 60-minute fire rating. I'm just going to type that in. I'm going to hit apply on that. And you can see all of your fire rating elements have updated there. Our 3D view is shown there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate this 3D view. I'm going to call this a ground floor 3D view. So GF 3D view. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to place this on a sheet as well. I'm going to place it on the same sheet, and I'll just show you how it comes in. So it comes in at the 1:100 scale, but obviously we can see it doesn't fit. So I'm going to change that to 1:200, see how it goes. That fits nicely in the corner now. And I'm just going to tidy up these different elements here. And I can do something, I can select these level heads and just hide them in that particular view as well. Oh, that is also hidden my wall. So I'm just going to undo that. And again, just hit those 3 level elements. We've got a nice 3D view created there. Now I want to create a roof on that 3D view. So I'm just going to go back into my 3D view, hover over this. I'm going to create a roof, go to my architecture tab, go to my roof by footprint, level 2. Yes, we'll place it at level 2, or I can create a separate level if we want. What type of roof have we got in here? Warm roof, timber, concrete. Let's create a warm roof timber. So I'm going to create a pitch roof for this, and we want it to overhang by 500 mil, for example. So I'm going to select all of those walls. All I'm doing is selecting those external walls, keeping it nice and simple. And we're going to create ourselves a nice hipped roof or pitched roof here. And you can see all of those, that wall has been created, added to the 3D view. I can even go into this 3D view and just hide it from that one just to show the floor plan, but it still appears in the 3D view here, still appears in my elevation if I wanted to place it on my sheet as well. And you can see how quickly you can pull something together by using just creating walls, creating a 2D view of that, and then using the 3D elements to place that on sheets as well. And I appreciate this design is quite a basic design, but you get the idea that the essence of Revit is in that efficiency by having this schedule information, the door quantification information, fire ratings, and everything pulled together and are all completely interlinked as well. I'm just going to turn on the shadows on this floor plan. I quite like to turn them on, just gives a nice effect, particularly from a presentation point of view, and I can even turn down the particular shadows of that as well. So I'm going to click apply, click OK. I'm going to close all of my sheet views except for that particular one I've created a sheet for, and I can even go in and I can start to enter the different types of information within here as well. So that's an overview of Autodesk Revit. I hope that's given you a bit of an insight to hopefully either make the move from your traditional 2D process, or to use it alongside your current workflows as well, making that transition into your into Revit workflows. It works quite well, particularly by linking in 2D drawings and all of the different integrations with other Autodesk solutions as well.